Today on Blue Values TV, we're going to be speaking with a candidate for the Board of Supervisors in District 2, representing Lincoln, Northwest Rockland, and Sheridan. Stay tuned. Welcome to Blue Values TV. Blue Values TV is a production of the Blue Values Coalition. We are a nonpartisan organization dedicated to informing, educating, and engaging our neighbors in the governance of our communities. Look for us online at www.bluevaluescoalition.org. With me today and our guest is Regy Bronner, who is a candidate running for county supervisor in the 2nd District. The 2nd District includes Lincoln, Northwest Rockland, and Sheridan.
That's correct.
And Regy, welcome to the show. We're really glad to have you.
Thank you, Jack. I'm happy to get the opportunity.
Let's start out with the most basic question. Why are you running? What's your interest in this?
Well, the thing is, I wake up in the morning, I live in a beautiful community. I'm a native Californian, I'm retired, and I live in Lincoln Hills section of Lincoln. And in the last 5 years, I've noticed a couple things going on in the county that are really questionable. One of which is there's been no real jobs, living wage type jobs attracted to this county, and yet we get more and more people retired and more people, blue collar level folks. And so we have this wide divergence in our society, and we need to start bringing these things together. And the way you do that with jobs. And then as I started digging in the last 3 or 4 years as to what's really going on in the community, I saw this tidal wave of development coming. And it seems to me it's totally unrestrained. There is no thought whatsoever as to the ecology, as to having all the parties at the table before the deals are done. Invariably, it's the developers working with the Board of Supervisors and with local financial people in various towns, and they're the ones that make all the decisions. The community is not consulted, and the unions are not involved, labor's not involved, and which is a shame because they all have a very strong part to play in this. That bothered me. I'm a community-minded kind of guy.
Great.
So that's what I decided to step up, Jack.
Great, great. Tell us a little bit about your background and what your qualifications are for this position.
A couple things, and just a thumbnail sketch. I was born in Oakland, California, and grew up here in California. Went to UC Berkeley, went to Utah State, got a number of different degrees, worked in the computer software and services industry, and was a business development guy. Okay, so I was the guy that did the contracts, did the negotiations, found the new clients, put them together, things that I think make me eminently qualified to sit on a board of supervisors, because it is really all about contracts.
And management and so on.
And management. Yeah, well, the Board of Supervisors does 3 things, Jack. The first one is they're responsible for all the unincorporated land use in the county.
Right.
Secondly, they provide all the services to the residents of those unincorporated areas, and that's the court system, that's the justice system, that's Health and Human Services and health, the Sheriff's Department, Fire Department, and so on. And then thirdly, they sit on regional boards, very important to this county. Sacramento Council of Governments, the Regional Transportation Board, which is very, very important right now to us, and of course all the various water boards, which is a big, big issue in Placer County,
big issue,
as you know.
So
yeah.
So let me ask you, if you're elected, what's your vision of where you would take Placer County? Which direction would you like to see us grow in? What would our future look like in Placer County?
I think it's very possible. Placer County's got some wonderful things to work with. This county should not ever have to face slums in the future. It shouldn't face unrestrained development. I'm not saying don't do development. You've got to have development. People are moving in the areas, young families coming in here, retirees and so on. They have to have homes, they have to have parks, community centers. They have to have all the things that make up the community for them to make life worth living. And I don't see a lot of that being planned as part of the developments. In fact, we don't know what some of the developments are doing. I went to a meeting today and listened to the Placer County Water Authority, and I listened to the City of Lincoln talk about water, and then they were talking about the developments. And in it, not one word was mentioned at all about the environment in which these places are being built. That bothers me. And so I think that's a doggone good reason to get involved.
Well, water is certainly a key issue affecting not just Placer County, but the entire state right now.
Yeah, the punchline is something they shared today, too. The punchline is basically where are they going to get the water to flush those 10,000 toilets?
That's right.
They don't have it.
We don't have water sufficient for meeting our needs with the population we have today.
Yeah, they
barely.
They barely. It was an interesting meeting today. They said basically, yes, we can, and then they talked about some of the areas they could pull the water from. But I got this distinct feeling it's marginal.
Right.
If there's a serious drought, we're in very serious trouble. We're in the third year of the drought right now. So now they're getting serious about building a drought plan and then saying to themselves, okay, what are we going to do? And then on top of it, the conversation comes around to what do we do about that extra 10 or 15,000 homes that we have planned over the next 5 to 10 years?
Just for background, we've got a 3-year drought.
Yep.
We've got mandatory water conservation in Folsom, and we're getting a request for voluntary conservation of 25% in Roseville and in Lincoln and the rest of Placer County. This is in the 3rd year of a drought. 5-year droughts are not that uncommon.
Not in California, no.
Right. And so there's a real concern about what our water future looks like.
It really is, and then there's whole issues about the existing water, whether the salinity is going up, whether we're tapping the aquifer here in the Central Valley. It's an anecdotal story, but we're facing a 300% increase in Lincoln of the cost of our water bills over the next 36 months. At the same time, we've got farmers in the northern part of the county running wells where they're selling the water out the back door to be shipped through channels, or canals rather, down to Southern California.
Yeah.
I mean, where's the equity in all of that?
Where would you see us going? Do we become more of an agricultural county? Do we become more of a manufacturing county?
Oh, no.
What's our direction?
We gave up being agricultural probably about 15 years ago. All the farmers are turning their land into homes right now. They're all involved with the developers. For those of us who come from the Bay Area and remember what happened to Oakland and south of Oakland down to San Leandro and San Lorenzo, that over 10 or 15 or 20 years, those areas became absolute rundown because a lot of things weren't done in those areas, a better quality of manufacturing for the homes, the construction work. We want to avoid that, I think, as much as possible. Like I said, I don't want to walk out my door one day and see that Lincoln Hills is surrounded by a slum, and that's already starting in Lincoln. So, and then if you go outside Lincoln, you go into the agricultural areas, then that's when you discover there's all kinds of other little stories that go on as well.
So what would our county look like with Regy Bronner in the Board of Supervisors? Imagine 5 or 10 years out. What's the general nature of what the county looks like?
Counties, it's going to be suburban. And if you're looking at Roseville, it's suburban going to urban. They're getting much more density in their population, so they're starting to go up now. I mean, you take a look at the Galleria, you know, that's a shopping center that'd be at home in Los Angeles or at home in San Francisco. I mean, it's definitely an urban area. Well, we're getting that way as well. We need to bring jobs here.
Well, let's talk about that. What kind of jobs would you like to see brought here?
Well, they've got to have 2 things going for them. Right now, the only 2 industries, viable industries that we have right now in the county are health and retail. And most of the retail is minimum wage.
That's right.
You know, the sad part about minimum wage is those people can come here and work all their lives and never be able to afford to buy one of the houses that we're building.
That's right.
That's got to stop. So we need prevailing wages, or at least a living wage. And people talk about $7.50 at federal. The state of California is $8.50. The governor wants $10.10. But in reality, the Congressional Budget Office says it's $14.23. So, you know, pick your poison. Something in there has got to be considered a living wage. So when you sit down with these people that want to build these homes and bring in the labor and that sort of thing, you want them to do a couple things. You want them, number one, to have all the parties there. That means the labor people have got to be involved. The community has to be involved. No more building big box stores and wiping out small businesses. We just did that with Costco. It shouldn't have happened. But it always
You're
happens.
talking about the Costco in
Yeah,
Auburn?
yeah, right there near the administrative center.
Right.
They moved the senior center. Costco was kind enough to give them $500,000. Depends on who you believe, but I think it's $500,000 to go and find another place, but they still don't have one.
Right.
The local businesses there got moved, and they have no place to go. Nobody's helping them. Those decisions should have been made before the deal was done.
Although Costco is generally regarded as a fairly good employer, good to their employees.
Well, Costco's a bright light in a very dim room.
Right.
There's no question about it. They stand heads and shoulders above the Targets and the Walmarts of the world because they do treat their people well. They have good benefits and that sort of thing. People work there a long time.
But generally, Reggie, if the future of our county is suburban and a little bit urban in Roseville, and the biggest industries are health and retail, you're absolutely right. Retail does not bring the incomes that allow for any kind of prosperity. So where do we get the higher paying jobs into Placer County?
Well, you know, it's an interesting thing. I come out of the high-tech industry, as you do, and we have watched little businesses become big businesses. In the Silicon Valley, it's a well-known secret, and not even a secret anymore, that no matter how many businesses we lose in California, Silicon Valley generates 1,400 new businesses every year, guaranteed, rain or shine, because of all the educational and brain power that's in the valley. It just keeps, and the spin-offs from the existing businesses. Well, they need new places to come, and one of the places they need to come is somebody like Placer County. I know those people. I used to pay every year my yearly trek up to Sand Hill Road and ask for a bucket of money for an IPO or for a business development project, whatever it happened to be. And these people are always looking for something that works for their business. If they want to spin off or keep somebody close to home, and then whatever, what better place than an educated population, population that has technical training that could be arranged. We don't have it today. We have colleges and universities that want to come in and move in here. Pretty soon this will be a hotbed of intellectual ferment.
We want to talk about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a big thing on my hit parade. And these people, they have the ability to sit down with them every year and talk about where this division will go, where that group will go, and we can sit there and say, hey, Placer County, we're willing to do this, 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 and this. Roseville's already doing that. They're already bringing in people. They just brought in a UPS distribution center. Folsom has a half a dozen high-tech industries, startups that came out of the valley, came up to Folsom. Folsom put them into a kind of little incubator operation. They're now starting to burgeon, and they're starting to hire people, and not at minimum wage. These are prevailing wages or better. That is really easy to do. It's just a matter, it takes time, and you have to be in a position, have the authority to represent the county. The county has made some effort. They've hired an economic development person who's supposed to be helping them, a lady, I believe. I'm not clear. And so far, I haven't seen anything come of it. Lincoln also hired somebody to do the same thing. But the people don't, if you talk to the people on the Board of Supervisors and you talk to the people on the City Council of Lincoln, they're all fine folks. They are nice people. But the fact of the matter is they don't know the industries. They really don't. They know farming, they know insurance, they know law, but that's it. Okay, if you really look, so really what do they need? Okay, what they need is somebody who's got 30 years experience who can go out and knock on the doors at Intel, or wherever, and say, let's sit down and talk turkey. Let's talk about Placer County and what we have to offer. Somebody who would market all the good features of Placer County to get them to bring their businesses up here. Assembly work, distribution, warehousing operations, and so on.
And even some manufacturing.
And some manufacturing, that's right. Although, Jack, I'll be very careful about that because when it comes to semiconductors and toxic chemicals, we need to talk.
Sure, of course. But we are doing some semiconductor manufacturing in Roseville.
Absolutely. I think
has a facility.
I'm very well aware of it. And I know that some other things are bringing in as well.
Right.
One of which I am happy to say I actually gave them a lead on 2 years ago. So I know how that works. So.
Very good. So let's talk about education. If that's going to be one of the things that attracts higher paying jobs to this area, there is some discussion in the Board of Supervisors about bringing 1 or 2 colleges to Placer County, new colleges.
There's a couple of programs going on right now. One of them was with Sierra College, okay, and they worked out a deal with an outfit back from, I think, up in New York State. It's a small school, private school. but extremely expensive. I have questions about that. But anyway, what they do is they allow the Sierra students to work on a BA while they're working on an AA.
Okay.
Okay, so, and then I'm not sure, but I believe the premise is that their last year or 2 years they would spend back on campus at the school back east. The problem is it's in the mid-50s. Extremely expensive.
Right.
And knowing the students here going to community colleges, I doubt very many of them can afford that. So what you have is a possibility of a mortgage mill in the making, saddling students with long-term debt. We don't want to see that happen. Job reentry programs are very important here. We have a whole bunch of veterans. There's 1,000 at Sierra College right now.
What about the other proposal for a college in Placer County?
Well, the big one right now on the table is Sacramento State, and Roseville is pretty much far down the road talking to them. But like everything else, it can fall at the last moment.
What do you think of that?
I think it's an excellent idea. Oh, sure, Sac State would be great. It's part of the California system. It's a solid public school, and their academic performance and levels are really up there, which is great. You know, the answer is yes.
Yeah, you'd all be.
I'd be right there. I'd help. I'd cut the ribbon.
There you go. Of course, it's going to take some time to
Absolutely, it
bring
will.
any of those things to fruition.
Yeah, I went through the community college being established in College of San Mateo when they went to a new campus up on the hill, and that took about 5 or 6 years. And I got to see that as a young guy coming out of the service. I wound up in the new campus, got to know her. That's the nice thing about a new school, you get to meet everybody. So you really know the history of
It would be nice if we could get this done in 5 or 6 years. I have the feeling it'll probably take a little longer.
It will.
Yeah.
It will. Technical training is very important right now. There are job reentry programs right now that work, and particularly for veterans, disabled veterans, the people coming out of realignment.
Mm-hmm.
These young people went off to jail. They're coming back here. It's 800 of them coming back to this county. All we're going to do is put an ankle bracelet on them and kick them out the door, and good luck. There's no job reentry or community reentry program. They're starting to become aware of this, the county is, now, and they're saying to themselves, what do we do about it? But nobody wants to sit down and say, let's have a study put together, let's pull it all together. Sacramento does it today very successfully. Mm-hmm. Then the third group of people, a long-term, senior people have been out of work for a long time. You know, I mean, here are some highly talented people with some additional technical training can be back in the workforce. Those people can be, and I've mentioned the immigrants, okay, I'm talking about the people from the Latino community, which is kind of a hidden community here for some reason. They could be brought into this program as well. So you have 4 or 5 wonderful sources of labor at all levels, and you need a technical training program for them. But we once again, have got to avoid a mortgage mill. We don't need private,
Absolutely.
you know, pay for play type universities here. As you know, I work on right now on the board of a company called America at Work, and we handle the reentry program for disabled veterans coming out of the VA. Mm-hmm. So they come out, we do a case study on their entire needs. We take a look at all of it, everything from psychiatric counseling to doing WordPerfect or Word and Excel, and all the things in between. And then we work with the potential employers, whether
Right.
it's a labor union pre-apprentice program or whether we're working with a manufacturer where they need lens grinding, or we work with city governments that are going to hire these people and so on. Our hit rate's 97%.
Wow, that's
Okay,
fantastic.
we've managed to bring over 500 people from nowhere to some really long-term unemployment or terrible, you know, burdens that they have to carry that have to be dealt with. When you're talking about veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, you're not talking about an easy task.
No.
I can personally tell you that. Being a veteran myself, I really understand it. But we're bringing them across. We know it works. We know it's working right now on a limited basis, as I mentioned, for the Sacramento jail. Mm-hmm. So there are some wonderful opportunities, and there's some wonderful agencies available in the region right now. Workforce Investment Group, we've used them before here. We have a lot of business people that are on it. They don't do anything with it. And they have $250 million a year available in that program to put into these programs. This is the kind of thing where I could go to an Intel and say, here's what we're doing, right. And we'd like to have, and they'd just sit there and say, geez, this is a double win for us. Yeah. Not only can we put a new group up here, say in maybe distribution, But we can also, at the same time, have a wonderful PR thing where we're bringing in veterans in the long term. You can see where it would work out.
Now, along with this kind of training, there's the whole idea of vocational training in high schools.
Absolutely.
Which is, I take it, something that you would like to see an increase in as well.
Jack, I went through the public school system in California, and I was in private schools for a few years, but by and large, mostly public school systems. Most of those kids will come out of there with the ability to read and write. About 30% of them are headed for universities and higher learning. Okay, the rest of them, in the old days, they were called shop classes. Okay,
Yeah.
but those things have gone. That like sports, like the arts, like many of these things, they have been cut out. And these kids come up and they get cut loose at a certain point. We're losing too many of them now, leaving school before they graduate. But they have no training. Even the ones that get through it, there's no training. The unions want to step up on this. We know that for a fact. We know that there are certain community organizations that are already right now, the county is working on a couple programs where they can bring people in on kind of an entry-level type of thing where they can, while they're going to school, earn a few bucks working in a government agency with the idea that they'll be hired in the future.
It's something we might be able to learn from some of our neighbors. I know that Sacramento, one of the colleges, has a really wonderful program, and South Lake Tahoe has a wonderful program.
I've heard about that.
For vocational training. I'd like to shift our discussion towards development, and in particular the relationship between development in Placer County, that is developing more housing, and the drought that we're in. We talked about the drought a little bit earlier, but it also impacts what we decide to do regarding our development. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, first, there's two things I'll say. One, development's here to stay. It's going to happen. A lot of the projects are already underway.
It's part of our future.
It definitely is. At the same time, our water resources are slim. Some people say it's close to none. But the county here, particularly Placer County Water, Water Agency, has been pretty good about finding alternative sources. But there are now fears that some of the things that we're doing, like with the aquifer, taking water out of it and so on, it's going to turn it salty or create a situation that you have down in the Central Valley where you actually have subsidence and no way to restore the aquifer because it's crushed. It's going to limit how much we can do. We have to really step back and say how much business has been let, how much can we actually support, okay? And at what point do we say, wait, unless we get additional supplies, we can't allow anymore?
Yeah.
And
do you think we're at that point yet, or can we continue?
We don't want to be. We don't want to be.
Don't want to be.
You talk to the Board of Supervisors, and particularly the ones that are influenced very heavily by the developers. I can give you a list of about 10 developers, but why do that? We all know who they are. They have a tremendous clout with the Board of Supervisors. They have a tremendous clout with Placer Water, Placer County Water. And and somebody has to get in there and sit there and say to them, no. Okay, or listen, fellas, you got a 10-year program. You know, financially, let's figure out how you can do this thing and do it over 7 years so we don't get 5,000 homes in the next 5 years. Maybe we get 5,000 in the next 75 or 7.5 or 10 years, 12 years out. And try to work that. We can negotiate that. We can work out a lot of things. We do a lot of things like that. For the terminally greedy, of course, that's not going to work. Okay.
But what about the idea of, okay, if we need to do development or we want to do development and our water resources are limited, what about increasing our water resources? There's been talk about maybe we should build an Auburn Dam to try to get more water storage and water availability in Placer County. What do you think we should be doing regarding building more storage space?
Number one, our drought problem is statewide. It's not just Placer County, and that's a real issue. I'm not going to get into the state issues, but I'll try to keep it in the county. Placer Water, who is really responsible for identifying and kind of managing the flow of all these things as far as who's doing what for whom, is faced with a real task. And I just listened to them briefly today talk about what they're going to be able to do. It's going to be a close thing next year, but they're going to make it. And they talked about brown water, you know, which is reprocessed water. They talked about the aquifers. They talked about the fact that they can draw on the Middle Fork project.
Right.
which is really interesting. We have it. Interesting enough, Roseville and a lot of other people don't have access to that. We're the only ones that do.
In Lincoln, you mean?
Yeah, Lincoln, yeah. And not only that, then there's the Folsom Dam, and the level of the dam got down too low, so now the decision was a couple of weeks ago, let's build some gates a little bit further down so we could suck out. Somebody said, fine, we can put gates in there lower down so we can make the dam go completely dry instead of half dry.
Right.
In other words, they are scrambling to come up with solutions, but they believe, although they refuse to guarantee today, but they believe that they can meet next year's needs. Now, with the development projects, it strains their ability to do that. Now, they can reach out to other organizations, other irrigation districts and so on to buy water and bring it in here. So they can bring water down from Yuba City, okay, down to the Bear River area and bring it down into here, something that's not being tapped today. Mm-hmm. We have, as I mentioned before, we have the water we get water from the American River. We get water from the dam up above it.
Right.
So we have a lot of sources. But it turns out that Roseville wants to work with Lincoln on a number of very large projects. Keep in mind there's 10 or 15,000 homes. That's just Lincoln's. There's another 10 or 15,000 that's Roseville.
That's right.
Okay, and they have discovered they don't have the water, so they got to buy it from us. So we're in a situation where we don't want to tell them no, but that further should put the brakes on what we're doing. So we have a decision to make, which will impact not just us, but it'll impact the region. Mm-hmm. And I think it's too important just to be allowed to be handled in the back room between a developer and somebody in the administration.
Yeah, that water situation is certainly going to affect things. Very quickly, I want to touch on a couple other issues. Placer County is going to start facing some additional costs in the next few years, and we also have a jail that we built in Roseville, Rockland Justice Center that we've never been able to staff because we haven't had the money to staff it. What do you see us doing about this funding situation? And then we're also going to be getting some additional revenue from the Middle Fork project on the American River starting in another year and a half. What would you like to see done with that additional revenue?
You've almost said what one of the solutions is, that we can use some of that money to fund the jail.
You could. You don't have to.
Well, it's interesting. Our budget was $730 million last year. This year it's $690. That's a $40 million shortfall. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we're going to need that money coming in from the Middle Fork. There's no question about it. One of the things they need it for is to staff the administration. Apparently, somewhere along the line, when they built the $105 million jail, by the way, it's not a jail. I've done a tour of it. It's a prison. If anybody really knows the difference, it is definitely a prison.
It's bigger.
It's enormous. The security is incredible. But somewhere along the line, they forgot to put the money aside for the administration. Between $10 and $50 million shortfall. They had a consultant tell them about it. I was there the day the consultant told this Board of Supervisors, and they said, "What? Oh, yeah." So how can you miss something like that?
Well, I think that's all the time we're going to have for today. Again, I want to thank you very much for being with us today, and good luck in your race for County Supervisor.
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving me the time.
And thank you to all of our viewers. Until next time, good night.